everything was really running us. At some point, you have to put the stops on and say, hey, wait a minute, this life is really running us more than we are running it.
Welcome to the Go Hunt Life Show, hosted by Todd Nevins.
This is Todd Nevins, and I explore stories about people that had seemingly normal lives and careers going, but they pulled the ripcord and blew up their comfort bubbles to hunt down their life that they had always dreamed of living. On the show today, I talked to Elizabeth and Gary Sherman. 1 year ago, they had a 5-bedroom house, 3 cars, and a big life in Austin, Texas. And as you heard at the beginning, I love this line, their lives were running them instead of them running their lives. Oh. Gary was a chief technology officer for a software company, and Elizabeth was a director of fitness at a country club. Today, I catch up to them on a beach in Mexico, where they now live full-time. But Gary is still the CTO for that software company, and Elizabeth has built her own business as a health coach. So we go through how they let everything go in the States for a different life south of the border, yet still kept the income coming in. And goats. We talk goats. You got to hear the goat story. Thank you to Wes and Lola Prince for sending me this story. And if you or someone you know has a journey of massive reinvention, please let me know. I am always on the hunt for cool, crazy, pulling the ripcord stories. Send me a message through gohuntlife.com or on any of the social channels. Please and thank you very, very much. My conversation with Gary and Elizabeth Sherman starts right after a word from our sponsor. This episode is sponsored by PrintDirtCheap.com. Jeff Chrisman, the founder of Print Dirt Cheap, started his business the way most companies begin, with grit, determination, and a vision. And now, a decade later, he's built his company into an online printing powerhouse. If I've handed you a business card in the last 4 years, it was printed by Print Dirt Cheap. And the decals all over my laptop, they printed those too. They print and ship over 30 categories of printing products, from business cards and decals to banners, company letterhead, restaurant menus, and a ton of direct mail pieces. And they have just rolled out an entirely new website, ensuring that your online user experience to place an order is simple and fast. And when you place that order, use promo code LifeHunter for $10 off. And Jeff has just launched Success Hackers, which is a global group of tenacious entrepreneurs that share the latest tips, tools, and hacks into growing a business. Check it out at facebook.com/Success Hackers. Gary and Elizabeth Sherman, thank you for jumping on the show today.
Thanks for having us, Todd.
Where are you located in the world? And if you were to walk outside, describe what you would see.
We are in beautiful Puerto Morelos, Mexico. Puerto Morelos is a little town right midway between Cancun and Playa del Carmen on the Yucatan Peninsula. And if we walk out our front door, we can look down our street directly east. We see palm trees, and just about 2 blocks away, we can directly see the Caribbean Sea.
Man, that sounds awesome. Are you married? How old are you? And do you have kids?
We are both 49, and we've been married for 13 years. We are child-free.
Child-free. All right. And what is your profession and primary ways that you guys earn a living?
Well, I am the CTO and VP of products for a software company based out of Austin, Texas. So I work remotely, even though the company I work for is based in Austin.
And I am an online health coach. So I work with women. I help them create healthier lifestyle habits in the areas of exercise, eating, stress, and sleep management. And I do that through private and group coaching using video and other technologies.
Beautiful. All right. So take me back, though. Gary, you just mentioned it, from Austin, Texas. Take me back, and not that long ago, back to 2016, leading up to when you guys pulled the ripcord in April 2017 and decided to move to Mexico. Take me back to your lives back then. What were you doing, and where were you living? What did your lives look like?
So we were living in Austin, Texas. So we'd been there. We had lived in our house there for almost 17 years. We kind of had the, I guess you would almost dream, if you will. We had the big house. We had a 5-bedroom house. We had 3 cars. We had plenty of stuff. We had everything we ever dreamed we could have from that kind of standpoint. We were kind of living pretty large in Austin and kind of loving it there. It was a lot of fun, and we really enjoyed our time in Austin. But then as we've been traveling around, we're like, hey, I think we can find some more interesting places to enjoy sometimes in our lives.
And you were still CTO of the software company.
Yes. So I've been working there about 17 years or so as well. So I worked there and right in Austin. So I was in the office every day. So it was I was pretty lucky that I was able to kind of make a transition and keep my job and work remotely.
Elizabeth, you had a real job though.
Well, I did. So I held the position of the fitness director at a local country club. And so I did a lot of in-person personal training and management of that facility.
But you're now doing that online. Did you start doing that while you were still there with the stability of a normal job?
Yeah, that's a good question. So my business is actually over 10 years old, and I really hadn't planned on being a fitness director, but it kind of fell into my lap, and I did that for 5 years. I had already, in about 2010, I became what they called then a wellness coach, and was building my online presence at that point, and then kind of put that on the back burner when I took the position of fitness director to see what I could build at this local country club. So I actually started the program and grew it for a period of 5 years.
I love these conversations because on paper, on a spreadsheet, everything looked great. There was no reason why you guys should sell the 5-bedroom home, the cars, and completely go to, blow up your comfort bubble. You guys had a 17-year comfort bubble here in Austin, Texas. When did the thought start of you guys doing something really, really different?
Yeah, so that probably started in about 2009. We had bought a fractional ownership condo in Belize, in Ambergris Caye, and we spent a month there. And that was the first time that we really kind of looked at each other and said, could we do this? Could we really just live on the beach somewhere other than in the United States? And so that was really our first inkling of there's something more than, like Gary said, we had this huge house, but everything was really running us. We were we were in control of our lives, obviously, but at some point you have to put the stops on and say, hey, wait a minute, this life is really running us more than we are running it.
Did you meet somebody in Belize that showed you that it was possible, other expats?
We did meet other expats. So the fractional ownership that we bought was basically in a resort. And everyone else that we met there were also owners in this same complex. So I don't know that anyone there was doing it full time, but I think we started to see that there were people in Belize who were living there full time, yeah.
So in 2009, up until April 2017, was there a specific tipping point that you guys reached that point of, okay, now or never, you only live once, all that kind of good stuff? Was there a point that you got to where you're like, we're going to do this, now we're going to start executing on these steps?
Well, I think as we've been traveling quite a bit over the last 10 years, and we traveled kind of throughout Mexico, we love the country. And every time we went somewhere, we were always like, well, where could we do this? And might this be the place? Could we see ourselves living here? So it was kind of always in the back of our mind that, if we ever kind of we just needed to find the place that kind of spoke to us, kind of resonated with us and said, yeah, we kind of feel this is a place where to be comfortable. So throughout all our travels, we found a lot of great places, but none that really kind of touched us and said, yeah, this is where it was. And then eventually, a couple of years ago, we kind of stumbled into Puerto Morelos and we were like, oh yeah, this could work for us. And then that was after our first visit here, that's when it really was like, okay, yeah, this could be it. So then it became a full on push to make it happen.
And so from that point, when you discovered Puerto Morelos, or maybe Puerto Morelos discovered you, what specific steps did you have to go through? And certainly Selling a 5-bedroom home in Austin, Texas full of stuff is, I'm sure, the big one on the list. But what else?
Oh yeah, there was just this huge list. So I think we came back from our first trip here and we just started dumping everything we could think of into a Google Doc of questions and things to do. Everything from like, yeah, we need to get our house ready for sales. We had to do some home improvements. How do we get rid of all of our stuff, whether we sell it or donate it? Get rid of our additional cars. And then it was figuring out, what we do for banking or cell phones, and how do we deal with our mail, and how do we bring our dogs into Mexico? How do we find a place to live down there that, actually finding a rental house or buying a house or whatever. And then what do we do about immigration and residency? So it just became putting everything we could think of into this, just getting it out of our heads and down on paper. And then it came a little less scary. I mean, it was a little overwhelming at first, but once we actually had it down, we were like, okay, now we have all these things, we can see them, and now we can start figuring out, okay, let's just start picking away at that list.
When you started that list to the day that you left, how long was that?
So our first trip here, Elizabeth, when was that? Fall of 20?
Yeah, so we, I remember it was December 2015. We were in a really nice high-end bar in Austin, and it was Sunday afternoon, and we looked at each other and we were like, well, Puerto Morelos really kind of ticks all the boxes. And we kind of did a backwards analysis of trying to figure out when we could move. And we wanted to move in that coincided with low season. We knew that we wouldn't be able to find a place to live in high season because all of the houses would be rented to vacationers. And so we knew that we couldn't get our act together before April of 2016. So we actually made the decision that we were going to leave in April of 2017.
A little over a year. So that sounds about right. So you started checking off the boxes of what you needed to do. But Gary, you continued as a CTO. Like, how did you break the news to your team, your the company that you were going to do this? You're no longer going to be physically in Austin.
Yeah, good question. So I think my team, we're a pretty small team. I have a team of about 6 people. And, I think they kind of had a hunch that I was kind of onto something. Most of my team worked remotely 1 or 2 days a week anyway, so we were pretty accustomed to that. But I kind of came right up and told them, and they were super excited for me, and they were super happy. So that was pretty easy. My boss was another story. He was a little bit skeptical about the whole thing.
How did that go? Is your boss here in Austin?
Actually, he's remote as well. He actually lives in Scottsdale.
So that had to have helped that you physically weren't seeing each other each day. You're already dealing with the long distance stuff, correct?
Right. So I think it was a little hard for him to say, no, you can't work remotely when he works remotely. Okay. So yeah. But I think his only real kind of experiences with Mexico was coming down to Cancun and sitting by the pool in an all-inclusive high-end resort. So he just assumed, I don't know what he thought, I'd be sitting around the pool in a resort drinking pina coladas all day long and not really working. So, but I think that, so I kind of felt like, okay, I can convince him, and it might be a little bit tough, but once I get here, just kind of prove to him that, yeah, I can still do the work and I can still do the job, and my work isn't going to miss a beat at all. So.
Yeah, that we've lived in Mexico for 5 years before, and sometimes that perception does come up, but it's kind of like somebody coming to the United States for the first time and going to Las Vegas and thinking they've seen the United States. Not even close.
Right.
All right, so you guys get to the end of the spreadsheet. It's April 2017, and you are leaving Austin. You are driving. What are you driving, and what's the scene like when you leave the city?
Yeah. So as we were getting ready to leave our last day, we basically woke up to an empty house, and we pretty much sold everything. I think the only we had left was a mattress sitting on the floor, really, and we had someone who was buying that. So we got up, and the rest of our house was empty. So the person came over and took our mattress, and we had one last meal of breakfast tacos in Austin and kind of said goodbye to our house for 17 years. It was a little emotional, for sure. I think more so for our house that we had kind of put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into than necessarily for the city itself. But yeah, and then we have our 2 dogs. So we loaded our 2 dogs into my Jeep. So I have a Jeep Wrangler, and we were towing a small trailer. So we loaded the dogs into the Jeep, and everything that could fit in a 5x8 cargo trailer was all we were taking. And off we went, headed for the border.
Mexico road trip. I've driven from the Yucatan to Austin. It's about 35 hours, give or take. How long did it take you guys?
So we ended up doing it as a 5-day trip.
All right.
So we didn't want to overdo it. We certainly didn't want to drive at night, just because there's, you get animals that are on the road. And we didn't want to overstress ourselves and stress the 2 dogs out as well. So we did it as a 5-day trip.
All right.
The first day was just to Laredo, and then the next morning we went through the border crossing, and then the next 4 days till we hit Puerto Morelos in the Yucatan.
What's the coolest memory of that road trip?
Oh, I don't know if it was cool, but
I know what he's going to say.
Lay it out. All right.
We almost hit a herd of goats crossing the highway.
No way.
Yeah, we were coming around the mountains through Puebla and stuff, which is just gorgeous. And then we were kind of coming down this hill out of the mountains, and we had seen animals on the side of the road. There'd just be goats and sheep and whatever just hanging out. And then I kind of come down this hill and around the corner, and there's a herd of goats just coming across the highway, just taking their sweet time. And I had to lock up the brakes, and I was afraid we were going to just come crashing right through a herd of goats. But we came to a screeching stop, so it was got the adrenaline up a little bit. But it was a pretty scary moment, but it was certainly memorable.
That sounds like a good road trip, it just kind of happens. So you roll into Puerto Morelos, and you had a rental waiting for you?
Yes, we had come down to Puerto Morelos the February before, for a week, and our whole goal of that trip was just to find a place to live. So we found a beautiful rental house with a great landlord. We really kind of lucked into a beautiful spot. We kept in communication with her, and she had the house ready for us when we arrived. So literally, we just drove right up and parked in front of our new rental house.
Well, and that was actually pretty scary, because when we found this place in February, we were leaving, and we were like, so we'll see you in May. Do you need a lease? And she was like, I don't need a lease. Do you need a lease? So, we were still really nervous about, are we going to show up and the house is going to be ready?
Yep. But it was ready.
It was pretty scary. It was.
See, there, yep, that's perfect. So describe the first month, because there is definitely a moment of euphoria and honeymoon stage and, oh my gosh, we really did it. But you guys are still working and you still have responsibility. So what was that first month like getting acclimated?
Yeah, so we really lucked out with our landlady. She lives on site, and she's Italian, but she speaks English and Spanish. And so she has really helped us just more than she possibly knows at helping us getting acclimated to, our new surroundings. So, some of the things that we really needed to navigate within that first month were we had power outages a lot. In fact, we had a power outage within the first 24 hours. We were unpacking our stuff, and all of a sudden everything got quiet, and there had been some chainsaws going. And then all of a sudden everything got quiet, and we didn't really think about it much, but then she came over and she was like, do you have power? And we were like, no. And so she went down to the corner, and some guys were clearing tree limbs off of the electric lines, and a tree limb just totally took out our internet as well as our electricity. And they were like, oh, the tree fell on the lines. And it was like, no, you cut it.
It didn't fall.
It didn't just fall.
Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, she helped us get, power back on in those times that, we didn't have it, getting gas, getting water delivery, and just getting us settled in. And I remember that first month just feeling like I was using so much brain power because I felt like I was mapping everything. Fahrenheit to Celsius, English to Spanish, pounds versus kilos, miles versus kilometers, like everything completely outside of what we had done. And not only that, but also what we expected to happen with our food and shopping and all of that stuff was completely different than how I expected it to be.
Why?
Well, I guess for some stupid reason, I thought that it would be the same way that I did it in the States. So in the States, on Saturdays, I would write out my list of things that I was going to make for dinners during the week. And then I would go to H-E-B, the grocery store, and buy everything that I needed for the week. And that was it. And here, I assumed that I would go to the local Mega Mart. Well, what we found was that the fruit and vegetables and meat at the local Mega Mart really is not good quality. And so we have a local farmers market that comes to town every Wednesday. So first of all, I wasn't used to shopping on Wednesdays. I was used to shopping on the weekends and getting my stuff ready for the week. And then, we go to the tortilleria to get tortillas. And, there are all those little places that specialize in just one thing. And so we shop more frequently and more locally than we did back in the States.
Support for this podcast and the following message comes from Click Placement, a digital agency designing Google AdWords and pay-per-click marketing strategies for startups, small businesses, and even people building a side hustle. Hit up clickplacement.com to start a conversation. If you would like to personally support the Go Hunt Life podcast, go to patreon.com/Go Hunt Life to make a donation.
Did you ever reach a point, whether it was then or something else, that maybe now looking back you think, oh, that was no big deal, but at the time you just felt like, what have we done? We have completely uprooted our life in Austin, and here we are on the coast of Mexico. Have we made a giant mistake?
I don't think that we ever had the idea of, oh my God, this isn't going to work out. I don't think we've ever had that thought. That it's just been too much. Within my business, I talk to my clients a lot about what's called the valley of despair, which is whenever you make a change in your health or, whatever it is, whether it's saving money or whatever, there's a point at which you realize that the change is much more difficult than it really is. And so you get to this area where you're kind of like, oh, it would be so much easier if I just went back to the way it was. And so we didn't really have that choice. But we still kind of felt like, oh my God, this change is really difficult.
But that's what you were yearning for, I guess. Is that right? Or it was just more challenging than what you expected?
I think there were some different challenges. I know for me, our first week here, our internet was really bad. And I had a little slight moment of panic our first week with our internet. It was really poor. It was really slow. And it kept going up and down. And I was like, how am I going to work online when I don't have stable internet? So I had a slight bit of panic, but we got things worked out pretty quickly. So, but that was a slight bit of panic as well for me.
I can see that. I would be the same way. I've dealt with that as well, traveling and living in Mexico. So, what is your primary and what is your backup when it comes to internet? Because you guys are both dependent upon it. Your businesses are completely dependent upon Wi-Fi and solid internet. What do you guys use to solve that problem?
So nothing overly special. I mean, so we have our internet through one of the providers here. And we actually get, most of the time, we get really good speeds. And then when occasionally things slow down a little bit, we do have the cell coverage here is really well. So we can do decent enough internet through our through the 4G network here. And then also, there's a couple of major providers here in town of internet providers. So like when ours goes down, we kind of know which restaurants and cafes have the other one. So we can also just pick up our laptops and go sit in a restaurant or a cafe. And if we need to do a little bit of work here and there remotely, we can do that as well.
Backup plan. What about your cell phone? Do you have U.S. cell phones or Mexico cell phones?
Yeah, we actually kept our U.S. cell phones. So we were on an AT&T plan, and we switched to a North America plan. So that gives us coverage phone, through voice and text and data through Canada, U.S., and Mexico. So we're able to keep our U.S. number. So that really didn't change at all. That's worked out great.
Have there been any, Gary, I guess specifically since your boss had some trepidations getting started, what have you had to change in your role, responsibilities, or just kind of the way that you communicate with your team since you moved to Mexico? What tools have you implemented?
Yeah, so we're, being in a software company, we're pretty much used to working everything kind of online anyway. So we kind of live on Slack from a group messaging standpoint. We spend all of us, me and my team, and actually most of our company spends the entire day on Slack. So that's kind of a big thing. And then the other thing I do a lot more is I do a lot more video conferencing. Mm-hmm. Even though we could just do it with voice, being able to just pop open see people just a little bit more. Mm-hmm. So we definitely do that a little bit more. That just kind of keeps us seeing each other more than just kind of a voice through the phone or just text through a messaging app. So
do you use Hangouts or Skype, or what do you use?
We use a little app called Appear.in. It's a free video conferencing app. I don't know. They probably have a limit of how many people you can do, but since my team is small, it's not a big deal for 4 or 5 of us just to jump in there, and it's free, and you don't have to install any special software, and it just works.
Wow. It's just an app on a phone or a desktop?
It's just a website. You just go to the website. It's not even an app.
Elizabeth, you quit your job and you built up as your health coach business. How did you make that transition? And now looking back after almost a year, what are kind of the tipping point in your business now?
Yeah, so once we decided in December of 2015 that we were going to do this, that's when I really kind of checked back into my online presence. And I would have to say that, I knew that moving to Mexico would change, that I would change, and that I would also start attracting a different type of person who would be attracted to my business. And that has definitely happened. So I think that the client that I had in Austin, although, I have many clients still from there, I'm also attracting a younger, more, I guess, rebellious type of, clientele who, the woman who, doesn't feel like she has to have children and have the white picket fence and the 2-car garage, that she can go traveling if that's something that she wants to, and is a little bit more adventurous. Yeah.
That sounds like an awesome kind of client.
I know.
That sounds great. How are you monetizing? You're a consultant, hourly? Like, where does the monetization come in?
Yeah, so I do one-on-one coaching with these women. And so I do weekly check-ins with them, and we really design their health. So in other words, what we do is I work with folks on eating, stress management, sleep management, and exercise. And, one of the biggest struggles with most people is being consistent or, being disciplined. And so that's what I help them do. I help them be a little bit more consistent in the habits that they want to have, and also create solutions for their busy lives.
How frequently do you talk to them each week? What's the communication like?
It's up to them. I have weekly coaching where we meet via video, and or they can do biweekly. And then it's up to them between sessions. They have access to me through Facebook, text, email, whatever methods they want to use. Yeah.
Do you use Skype as your main video conferencing tool?
No, I actually use a tool called Zoom.
Zoom.
Yeah, and then I also do group coaching, and I use Zoom for that too, because it can allow more than one person to be on as well.
All right. So looking at today, how has a typical day changed for you two? And maybe it hasn't.
Yeah, during the work week, since we're both still working, it really doesn't look a lot different than when we're in the U.S. I mean, we get up, we go to the gym, we walk the dogs, we work, a little TV in the evening. So during the work week, it's not much different. On the weekends, we certainly go to the beach a lot since we're only about 2 blocks from the beach. So it's easy to pop over there and grab a chair and read and catch some sun. We get to explore the area a lot more. So the different towns that are around here, going to visit the cenotes and snorkeling out at the reef. And we do tend to eat out a little bit more, I think, here because we can just walk to everything, as opposed to in Texas where you always had to drive everywhere. Here we walk almost everywhere in our section of town, which is great. And I think we're a lot more social now. The community that we've met down here with just a great group of friends. So we get together with them a lot more than we ever used to with a lot of our friends back in the U.S.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think kind of we're all kind of in the same boat. We're all kind of on this journey together, and we're all kind of supportive of one another. So I think the friendships have come a lot more natural here, and we kind of band together, and we know we're here for each other when anybody needs help. So I think the social circles here have become it's fantastic. It's been one of the things that I think has most surprised us about moving here.
That is exactly what we experienced in Merida as well. It's a very interesting dynamic that definitely brings people together really, really quickly. What are you guys focused on in the next 6 months?
Well, we decided to stay here. So, we've been renting for the past 9 months to a year. And what we've decided is that we're starting to look at properties and building.
Wow. So this was a test run that Puerto Morelos was the city for you. And if not, maybe we're going to go somewhere else. Is that right?
Yeah. So we decided on Puerto Morelos, and, it's always a crapshoot, right? That you don't know if this place is as awesome as you think it is.
Sure.
Different cities are for vacationers and other cities are for living. And so we decided that we were going to try living here, and we knew that we were going to rent. And we figured that if we didn't like Puerto Morelos, that at least it would get us to Mexico, and we could always find someplace else that, once we were here, we would say, oh, well, let's check out this city or that city and see if that resonates more with us. We've decided to stay. Yeah.
You're settling in. Excellent. All right. So what advice do you have for somebody listening right now that is sitting in a cubicle and they're thinking, man, Gary and Elizabeth, they figured this out. But it's a daunting task when you're sitting there at that upscale bar in December 2015 and you're making that spreadsheet. That's daunting. You've got a year and a half's worth of like a second job just to pull the ripcord. What advice do you have for them to say, you know what, you've got to do this?
Yeah, I think you just kind of need to look at what's important to you and what do you want your life to look like. And once you kind of have that vision, and then once you know what it is or where you want to go, of course you're going to have those million questions and things that you need to do and to think about and you're not sure about. I think for us, what worked is just getting all that stuff out of your head onto paper. Having a goal, and that could be picking your date about when you want to make that change, and then figure out everything you just need to get done before that point. If it's important, you'll find a way to get it done. And you can look at your fears as well. Like for us, as Elizabeth said earlier, if it didn't work out, we knew we could go back to the U.S. So even though it's a move, I mean, nothing has to be permanent in life. And once we kind of identified that, hey, that's our worst case scenario, we get there and it doesn't work out, like we knew we could recover from that. We knew we could be like, okay, well, we go somewhere else in Mexico, or we go back to the U.S., or, things just weren't as scary anymore. So we could just kind of focus on what was important and what we wanted. We had our goal and we had our vision, and just keep working towards it.
Elizabeth, is there anything major situation or a decision that you made over the last year that you wish you had a do-over on?
I don't think so. We were very deliberate and methodical in everything that we did leading up to this move. And yeah, we were very thoughtful about it as well. I don't think that there's anything that we would have done differently, to be honest.
Awesome. All right. We are going to end at that. You can find Gary and Elizabeth Sherman at TexMexExpats.com, which is just awesome. At ElizabethSherman.com and on Facebook at TexMexExpats. Gary and Elizabeth, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you, Todd. It was fun.
Don't forget to hit up the online printing rock stars at printdirtcheap.com and use promo code LifeHunter for $10 off. Hey, Life Hunters, thank you for listening to this episode of Go Hunt Life. If you like the show and would like to support it, go to iTunes and do this. Subscribe to the show, leave a rating, and review it. It helps. And thank you. If you or someone that you know has quit their normal life to follow their dreams, I would love an introduction and maybe interview them on the show. You can find me at GoHuntLife.com and also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest at Go Hunt Life. Until next time, stay weird, dare greatly, and ripcord out.